can all be seated.
It's going to be somewhat hot in the sun. If you'd prefer to come on in, maintaining distance, that would be certainly fine. Friends, we gather together this morning to celebrate the life and to honor the memory of Gertrude Krause. I think you'll agree with me that one of the felicities of this difficult and challenging period in which we live is the opportunity provided by social media for us to be able to be together on an occasion like this, even though we are tuning in from different cities and different towns. So that though many of us cannot see one another, we do know that others are watching, feeling what we're feeling, and giving us a sense of community, of family, of togetherness as we share a common sadness and a common love. And I want to also welcome those who are here with us this morning. Our physical presence, although we're separated to some degree, also offers us comfort and support. Adonai ma'adam v'teda ehu ben enosh v'chashvehu. O Lord, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days are like a passing shadow. We come and we go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, in the evening it fades and it withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, return, you mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. The author of the first of the Bible's 150 Psalms describes for us in language that is both poignant and succinct the nature of the good life and the fruits of a life well lived. Happy are those who have not followed the counsel of the wicked or taken the path of sinners or joined the company of the insolent. Rather, the teaching of God is their delight, and they study that teaching day and night. They are like a tree planted beside streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, whose foliage never fades and whose fruit always flourishes. Join me, if you wish, in the 23rd Psalm as we take comfort together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Kohelet, the author of the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, reminds us that for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Gertrude Krause died early this past Saturday morning, just a few weeks shy of her 97th birthday. She lived a long life and she touched the lives of those she knew and loved, and we will miss her. Gertrude was born and raised in the Buckeye and 93rd Street area of Cleveland, the daughter of immigrant parents from Eastern Europe, and along with her older brother, Alvin. She graduated from Glenville High School, and soon thereafter she married Sylvan Simon. After 15 years of marriage, they were divorced. Along the way, Gertrude worked for 7 or 8 years, first as a bookkeeper for a car dealership, and then for El Al Airlines, where she served as a receptionist and as a travel agent. She and Harold Krause were married in 1969, and together they enjoyed both traveling and their beautiful home on the lake at Walden in Aurora. Their durable union lasted until Harold died in 2009. These then are some of the facts about Gertrude Krause's life. But what kind of a person was she? When I spoke with her children, Barbara and Michael, last night, they told me about the personality and the character of their mother. She was, first of all, a person with a good sense of humor, a great smile, and a warm manner. She was a very pretty woman who was always well and properly dressed. And she loved to shop for clothes and for pretty things. Every week, like clockwork, Gertrude had her hair and her nails done. And so important to her was this particular weekly ritual that she was able to keep these appointments right up to the very last week of her life. Gertrude was also a family person. She regularly visited her children in Chicago and Atlanta, and she devoted herself to keeping up throughout her life with her parents, her brother, her children, and her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren, all of whom she always kept in the forefront of her thoughts. Now, one of the things that Gertrude evidently loved to do was to send cards for birthdays, for anniversaries, and for other special occasions. And Barbara and Michael, you both laughed when you told me how often her cards had emblazoned across the front or on the inside, "From across the miles." Now, those who knew Gertrude Krause well know that she was a person with a strong will and with a determination to do things her own way. When Gert made a decision, she stuck to it. And evidently, she never, or perhaps only rarely, regretted the decision she had made, though sometimes she found that she had to adjust her expectations to accommodate the implications of her choices. Even her move to the wilds late in life, a move she didn't really want to make, was something that she finally decided to do. And upon deciding, she simply said, "I have made the decision." Now, we all know that strong-willed and determined people who are used to fashioning their own lives and who are successful at doing it, can sometimes be stubborn. Indeed, it is hard to imagine the one without the other. And so it was not surprising when Barbara and Michael, you told me that yes, your mother could be quite stubborn and that her stubbornness sometimes caused problems. Yet on the whole, her resolute will served her quite well. After all, I think we can agree that a person doesn't make it to 3 weeks before her 97th birthday without that kind of inner determination and drive. In addition to my conversation with Barbara and Michael, I also spoke at some length yesterday afternoon with Gert's longtime caregiver, friend, and confidant, Alonzo Spencer. And Alonzo, I was touched as you waxed eloquent about the person that you loved and admired. Gertrude, Alonzo told me, enjoyed reminiscing about the past in general and about her childhood in particular. How she was the May Queen in the 3rd grade at her elementary school, and how 2 little boys, whose names she couldn't quite recall, were her attendants. And about the many times she sat with her father as a child and listened to the baseball games on the radio, and how these formative and beloved occasions led to her lifelong love of the game of baseball and to a passion for sports in general. She had a sharp memory, Alonzo, you told me. And Gert had other lifelong passions: gardening, knitting, needlepoint, golfing, and her morning crossword puzzle. And Alonzo went on to say that Gertrude was, in your words, and I quote you, a very nice person, humble and generous, warm and caring. I've known a lot of people in my life, you said, Alonzo, but she was among the nicest. And then you added, I know good people when I see them. And Alonzo and Barbara and Michael all emphasized that Gertrude was a good friend, dedicated and loyal and present to those she cared about, and with whom she regularly enjoyed mahjong and other social activities. And when her friends had a need, Gertrude was there for them. Later in her life, she was especially close to her caregivers and dear friends, Alonzo, you, and Barbara Price, both of whom she considered members of her family. Alonzo, you also told me yesterday that Gertrude often introduced you to others as her son. We formed a bond, you told me, with strong emotion. Now, I want to devote further attention to Gert's involvement with and impact on her family. First, to point out that Gertrude and Harold always made special attempts to be present at the life cycle events of her family, at birthday parties, at bar mitzvahs, and graduations and weddings, and how they rejoiced in these opportunities to be there and to participate in the wedding toasts and the blessings. And Gert, known to her grandchildren as Booby, loved attending as many of the other events of her grandchildren as she was able to. Now, one of the things that she loved most of all were the visits of her grandchildren to her, during which they would enjoy together fishing off her dock and raking leaves and jumping in them. And during these visits, Gert would tell her grandchildren about family history by sharing stories and the scrapbooks and the photo albums that she kept. And they sometimes cooked together, stayed up late, ate candy, and watched reality TV. And Gert loved giving advice to her grandchildren. Advice when they asked for it, and advice even when they didn't ask for it. And as her granddaughter Alex said, Gert was the cool grandma that everyone wanted. She always was dressed to the nines, taught me that my dream of a walk-in closet was attainable, and from whom I got my online addiction, end quote. An amazing grandmother, indeed. And as a tribute to Gertrude's strong character, to her determination to do things her way and to create her own pathways, Gert's family has asked me to read Robert Frost's memorable poem, The Road Not Taken, which I now want to read. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Gertrude Krause is survived by her daughter Barbara and her son Michael, by her son-in-law Rick, and by her grandchildren Matt and Jenny, Adam and Katie and Alex, and by her great-grandchildren Charlie, Cole, Lainey, Evan, Alice, and Anna, and by her two special friends, Barbara Price and Alonzo Spencer. Gertrude was predeceased by her brother Alvin and by her husband of 40 years, Harold. Gertrude Krause lived a long and a full life. She raised two fine children, spent quality time with her grandchildren, and lived to see the arrival and the promise of her third generation. And she made an indelible impact on all who knew and who loved her. Zichrona Livracha, the memory of Gertrude Krause, will always be our blessing. Amen. The voice cries out, and I say, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, all its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades when a wind of the Lord blows upon it. Surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God shall endure forever. Hatzur tamim ba'alo ki chal derachav mishpat. El emunah ve'ein avel tzadik v'yasharhu. God is sure our immovable rock. All God's work is upright. Who can say, what is it that you do? The Eternal governs what is above and what is below, overseeing both the valleys of death and the heights of life. God is sure our immovable rock. Who can say to God, what will you do? You are righteous in your dealings in both death and life, and every soul is in your trust. We praise you, Judge of truth, who ordains death and summons us to life. Help us to feel your presence at this time so that we may declare that God is upright, our rock, in whom there is no unrighteousness. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who forms us in the divine image, who nourishes and sustains us in his goodness, who causes all of us to die, implanting immortal life within us. O God of life, amid the ceaseless tides of change which sweep away the generations, your love remains to comfort us and to give us hope. Around us are life and death, decay and renewal, the flowing rhythm that all things obey. Our life is a dance to a song that we cannot hear. Its melody courses through us for a little while, then it seems to cease. Whence the melody and whither does it go? In darkness as in light, we turn to you, the source of life and the answer to all of life's mysteries. I now ask all of you, if you are able and wish to please rise. You certainly may remain seated. El mole rachamim shochein bamromim, hamtzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina, im kadoshim utahorim kazohar harakia mazirim, et nishmat yakirenu shahachal la'olama, bal rachamim yastireh b'seder kanafav la'olamim, v'yitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalat Compassionate God, eternal spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Gertrude Krause, our loved one who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say together, Amen. Amen. The dust returns to the earth as it was. The spirit returns to God who gave it. It is only the house of the spirit which we now lay within the earth. The spirit itself cannot die. Receive in mercy, O God, the soul of our beloved departed Gertrude Krause. Grant her that everlasting peace which you have prepared for us in the world to come. Though no human eye has seen, nor ear has heard, nor mind has grasped it, still it is our sure inheritance and our everlasting portion. O God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain which loss inflicts is the measure of a love that is stronger than death. Though we cry in the anguish of our hearts, may we know that our Comforter is near, and may we cling unafraid to the trusted hand. In this spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to us to your keeping, as we now repeat the words that have been hallowed by our generations, the Kaddish, which you can find on the card that some of you are holding, as we say, Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, v'Alma Divrach Hirutei v'Yamlich Malchutei, v'Chayechon of Yomechon of V'Chayeduchal Beit Yisrael, v'Agalav Izman Kariv Imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Almaya, Yit Barach v'Yishtabach v'Yit Pa'ar v'Yit Romam v'Yit Naseh, v'Yit Hadar v'Yit Aleh v'Yit Halal Shmei Dekudashah B'Richu, Le'ela Min Kal Birchata v'Shirata, Tushbachata v'Nechemata Da'amiran B'Alma v'Yimru Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabbah Min Shemaya v'Chayim, Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom. Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Yimru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us, and let us say together, Amen. Amen. This concludes our service. We're going to complete our service by placing dirt on the casket, a symbolic gesture of affection for our beloved deceased. I'm going to start by putting a couple of handfuls of dirt on the casket on behalf of the family, And then those who would like to participate in this ritual may come forward. We'll keep our social distance from one another, but you can also participate by placing a handful or 2 or 3 on the casket. Once again, we're so comforted by your presence here with us this morning, those of you who are here, and comforted by the knowledge that those of you who are tuning in are feeling the comfort of family and the presence of friends at this time. This concludes our service.
Do you want to place those flowers also?
Thank you so much for your participation this morning.
I'm Rosetta. I don't know. You too. I'm Cheryl. I'll be in Mrs. Krause. your mom?
Oh, that's great.
She used to have her hair done in Hudson. Head closer. I'm Rosetta, the dressmaker. And so, how's your mom? Oh no, you didn't do it all right. She's thinking Karen. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not very good with names. I'm not very good with names. But I knew Pat for Dora, you know, so I didn't see them. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. I know. I know. Another thing.
The idea how many people do this.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
5.
Oh yeah.
5 screens.
Yeah, 5 screens.
But towards the end,
That's all we
you know,
can
I
see.
used to see her. She was
There are 6 participants, us being one of them.
I have no taste
You
of
know
food. I
from
can't taste
where?
nothing. She said, I eat
Adam
things I know I gotta eat.
Kabaker.
Otherwise, she won't even eat us.
Okay.
Alex Simon,
Good.
Barbara Kabaker,
Yeah.
Matt Kabaker,
Okay.
and Michael.
I take it as off.
Still
Thank you for helping.
Did I thank you?
I hate to see us all. Oh, and she will not allow that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. She had a hard
This
time.
concludes our service. We'll be closing down the Zoom service now.
People in it, record so much of the service. So that maybe people can-
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, I don't know. You know me so long. You know what? She said, I know you. Yeah, I saw.
Sorry?
Such a challenging moment.
Oh my God, it is. You know, and the thing is, people come to the sanctuary and expect